This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of WEBIT Virtual, Dr. Plamen Russev.
Hello and welcome to WEBIT Virtual, another fantastic opportunity to listen and interact with leading media personalities and discuss opportunities in this opportunistic world we live in. I will make a very brief wrap-up of where we were on Tuesday together with Sir Martin Sorrell and Ms. Jane Wakely from the CMO, the lead CMO of Mars. We were discussing about brands, purpose, and innovation, agility, and above all, we were discussing about one simple fact. Sir Martin Sorrell predicted that post-COVID world will be the world of no conglomerates and no holdings. He connected the current situation to when the holdings, conglomerates, a long time ago were existing and had to be destroyed and are not existing anymore. He said the same will happen to the huge holding companies. Obviously, of course, he meant his own story, leaving the big conglomerate, the big holding company of WPP, and building new business, which only for the time of COVID almost doubled its valuation to 2 billion. And Jane Wakely on her side has been elaborating on the opportunities rather than the challenges of the COVID and post-COVID times. And she was quite optimistic in regards to where the industry is heading and the efficiency built around it. The new approaches, the D2C, direct-to-consumer and customer approaches, and so on and so on and so on. We will stop here. We have a fantastic panel of some really very interesting participants from different media from all around the world, anywhere from US to Russia and Europe. And we shall be covering a bunch of topics from where the new and post-COVID world and consumer is heading to and how he or she is going to look like through investments. And of course, ending up with some of the trends and the predictions we always do here in this virtual studio. Without further ado, allow me to introduce one after another my special guest today, and this is the first one.
Tiber Leland is the president of Sterling Marketing Group, a branding, marketing, and color strategy and implementation firm where she works on building stronger personal, business, and team brands. Karen has worked with a highly diverse group of industries, and she is also the best-selling author of 9 books.
Karen, such a pleasure to welcome you back again to WEBIT Virtual. Thank you so much for joining.
It is always a pleasure to be here, Plamen. Thank you.
And it's always a pleasure to welcome you back, Karen. Thank you so much. Introducing the second panelist.
Denny Alfonso is a correspondent at Univision Communications. An Emmy winner, Denny has been reporting the news in the US and the world for over a decade. Having interviewed many world leaders, from Hillary Clinton to Fidel Castro's brother, Martin Castro, and sports stars, from David Beckham to Kobe Bryant, covering presidential elections and UN General Assemblies, Denny is also a passionate investigative journalist who holds experienced credits at NBC, CNN, and Yahoo.
Such a pleasure, true pleasure to have you, Denny, with us. Welcome. You joined us last minute this panel, and I very much look forward to tap into your ideas and vision of where the post-COVID world is heading. And congratulations to your amazing career.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's a wonderful opportunity to be out there and reach out to young people also, and you know, with these old tools, the technology permit us to, you know, guide us all through during these times. Thank you.
That's the magic of our current world, virtual, reaching out to communities outside of any boundaries you can think of. Thanks again for joining, and let me introduce our third panelist.
Julia Magas is a journalist at Cointelegraph and contributing author at Investing Seeking Alpha and Startup Advisor. She is a fintech analyst and journalist. Her works are featured by popular fintech magazines, including Investing Seeking Alpha and Cointelegraph.
Julia, welcome. Well, actually, I should say Julia, no?
Yes, you can choose any way you like. So.
And the short for Julia should be Yuka.
Actually, I don't know what this means, but in Russia, where I'm located right now, they don't actually use this variant. So it's something, but call me Yuka if you like this.
Yuka, okay. Yeah,
Hello, Thank you for this opportunity. I really enjoyed this opportunity to be here today and to share some insight with our audience.
Same here. Very grateful for making your time joining us. Allow me to introduce our fourth panelist, and we jump in deep dive into our discussion. And here it is.
Ankush Chibber is managing editor, Mashable Middle East. He is a multi-skilled editor and digital media content strategist with 14 years of cross-platform experience, specializing in editorial strategy, brand building, audience growth, and most importantly, impactful storytelling. Ankush edits the Middle East edition of Mashable, covering technology, digital culture, and business in the region since the brand's inception in 2019.
Hello, Ankush. Thank you so much for joining us at WEBIT Virtual.
Thank you, Plamen, for having me back. We had a great discussion last time, and I look forward to our chat today. I look forward to learning from my co-panelists. I'm sure this is going to be a really insightful discussion.
Absolutely, Ankush. You know, it's very easy. As long as you have great panelists, the discussion comes naturally at this fantastic turnaround. And I look forward to scratch our brains and try to unveil what is coming up next. We see so much uncertainty. Anything we say could be taken as an opportunity or as a challenge. So let's see where the crystal ball will take us. Thank you for joining. I'm now addressing all of my panelists, and you've heard the brief wrap-up of our discussions we had with Sir Martin and Jane Wakely. It's been really eye-opening. You know, Sir Martin is always very passionate about what he's doing, and he's able to articulate every single thought he has. So I couldn't manage to ask the hundreds of questions that we've received from people from all around the world, starting from anywhere in India, Argentina, Brazil, US, and Australia, and Europe. But I have a lot of questions to ask you today, plus the questions, of course, that we have wrapped up with our team. And my question for all of you now is, in order to connect the dots between what we were talking about on Tuesday and today, I would like to see and to hear your thoughts on how the post-COVID world customer do you think will look like? Because at the end of the day, it's the customers that shape, through their demand, of course, the supply. So who would like to start first? Maybe Julia.
Yes, thank you for the question, Plamen. Actually, it's very interesting times we are living right now, and times when people's lives are changing, habits are changing, and the demands are changing. And that's why some of these trends, they will be forgotten, but some of them will stay with us for a long time, even if not forever. Actually, brands are now have to adapt to this new realities to understand how their customers' habits are changing and how their customers' lives are changing, how their customers' fears are changing. And that's why what we are expecting, what we are seeing right now is that some habits, especially taking care of health, hand washing, social distancing. They are booming right now among all the types of customers, among all the types of generations. And actually, this is amazing how brands find new approaches, find new customer-oriented approaches, find new, they are taking on a human face. They are taking on, they are trying and experimenting with new approaches, with new models. For example, we are seeing like such examples like fitness clubs put special barriers, and beauty salons experiment with newfangled air disinfecting devices, and air companies credit their customers with miles and with bonuses for staying at home. And actually, this is what I think this will stay with us even after the coronavirus pandemic will end. And so these new habits and new demands, they're forcing companies to increase the quality of their service and to compete for the new audience in new realities.
Thank you, Yulia. Ankush, what is your take on that? We are discussing the customer patterns pre and post-COVID with this huge economic impact. We call it the silence wall. What do you think is going to be the new shape and form of the customer and their must-haves, nice-to-haves, can't afford to have?
The must-haves, the nice-haves, that's a good point, Plamen. The customer in the post-COVID world, especially given the economic impact, would be what I would say an unpredictable one. Generally, brands rely on being able to predict the customer behavior and how it will translate year on year. But what we are going to see, I think, right after, or we are already seeing it, in fact, is that the customer is deciding, he's still shopping, but he's deciding between the must-haves and then, the can-haves. And this changes actually month on month or even quarter on quarter. In the beginning, for example, the outbreak happened, we saw them rushing towards healthcare products, towards cleanliness products. You saw brands pivoting quickly. If you were remotely in the world of hygiene, suddenly making masks or sanitizers and so on. Brands will have to think on their feet. It could be that at some point things in the US hopefully improve, and suddenly all of the US is now going on holiday or something of that sort. You will see leisure wear finding a lot of traction. So the new customer will be really unpredictable. I believe that the affordability will become a huge factor. And brands that have typically had products which would fall under the category of luxury or so on will need to change their perception and somehow be perceived as a must-have. I think that's where the great challenge will lie. Others that fall under the category of must-have, things like food, healthcare, and so on, they are going to have an easy ride. But every other brand in the business will have to think on their feet and figure out a way to make sure that we can predict the customer and also cater to it in the future.
Thank you, Ankush. Karen, may I hear your opinion on that, please?
Absolutely. I loved what Ushan just said about the flexibility of the customer and the flexibility of the organization. So one of the things I'm really seeing in the work that I do is that trust is right now the ultimate commodity. And that what consumers are really looking for are brands that they can trust. And I think in the pre-COVID, trust was about doing the right thing, but trust has actually shifted. The formula for being trusted by consumers, brands being trusted, has really shifted quite a bit. And what I'm seeing happening is the formula is not just doing the right thing anymore. It's brands doing the right thing in the right way, plus timing. It's the amount of time it takes them to do the right thing. And so, of course, a great example here just in the US is what happened a few months ago with PPP, the payroll protection, which was designed for small businesses. And you had companies such as Chris's Ruth's Steakhouse took a PPP loan, as did Shake Shack, which are two very big restaurant chains or takeout chains in the US. And immediately there was a huge uproar because people said, look, they're not small businesses. They shouldn't be taking advantage. And Shake Shack immediately got on that, said, we're sorry, you're right. They gave the money back, repaired it, and their reputation was great. Chris's steakhouse, Chris Ruth's Steakhouse, took a lot of time. They hem and hawed. In the end, they gave the money back, but the way they did it and the timing with which they did it did not engender trust. And I was tracking it on social, and you saw this huge uptake in respect and in trust with Shake Shack, but you saw a huge downtrend for a while there with Chris's Ruth's Steakhouse. I think it's really that trust is the biggest commodity, because the other thing that's happening is we're entering a category of what's called new essentials. You know, in the past, consumers had essentials and they had non-essentials, but we're entering this new category of what's called new essentials. And that's the things that people are starting, consumers are looking at buying, and they're looking very closely at brands and do they trust them? And it's things like office supplies are up 28%, health and fitness is up 29%, housewares are up 26%, home improvement is up 24%, beauty and cosmetics is 30%, toys and hobbies is up 20%. So those are kind of the new essentials. And so I think we're not only going to see a shift in how brands are assessed by consumers, I think we're going to see some shifts in categories where instead of just essential and non-essential, we're going to have these new essentials. That's what I'm seeing in the work that I'm doing.
Thank you so much, Karen. You are saying things that go up, right? Great. There are industries that are almost bankrupt.
True.
Like, for example, travel and tourism.
Restaurants.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I would like to hear Denny. Denny, you're doing a lot of investment consulting also. And,
Yeah.
let's talk about demand. Let's talk about, because supply is oversupply. There are more airlines than
Exactly.
we need anyway, and so now they look even more than needed ever. So let's say you're a customer once. Well, I never know when I'm going to be flying again 200 days per year, as I used to be traveling.
Right.
But let's say if you're an investor, when do you expect that it's a good time that you sell the stocks?
Exactly, that's a good point. And just to kind of like connect the idea of the essential needs, now we're seeing an increase of those essential needs. On those stocks, obviously, it's the consumer, whoever owns like a share of, for instance, in Expedia, American Airlines, hotel industries, whoever owns that share may think about selling it right now because that is not essential for anyone right now. The traveling is not essential anymore. It's something that you can do. Which is essential is that product, the hand sanitizer. So maybe a stock on Johnson & Johnson or all those industries are good to keep because those are going on the rise. If you compare with the last year, those weren't that essential as people, you believe in America, people may just go and travel first before buying that hand sanitizer because we never thought about hand sanitizer. So in those terms, those shares that we own in traveling, they're ready to be sold because within 2 years or so is when you see your money back. And maybe the expertise on Wall Street Journal, they will say, not necessarily you're going to see those shares going up, within the next 2 or 3 years. So right now we're just basing those investments in essential needs, like basically all the products that are really essential to live in, like oil, absolutely, that's going to go up, absolutely. So that's good to keep, and just to sell what is not essential. So in terms of traveling, whatever you had on the hotel side, that is not essential anymore. There is no hotel fulfilling, even though, countries, we're talking with people in New York, Dubai, Moscow, I'm in Milan right now. So everybody has a common denominator that we consume something, like the mascara, or, I don't necessarily go for makeup as essential anymore. I go for hand sanitizer. I don't go for home improvement anymore because I don't even like as a customer, I wouldn't have the money to do the home improvement because I don't know if tomorrow I'm going to have a job. So the home improvement share is like, this is the time to sell those things that are not essential within our day by day kind of thing. That's my thought.
That's very interesting. So we have kind of a consensus here in regards to how how the consumer will act in a COVID and post-COVID world. We talk about essentialism. But at the same time, between the first and the second wave, or let's say immediately after the first wave, you know that in one of the most hit markets like South Korea and China, a very unessential commodities and services were on a huge rise. These were the upper level of luxurious goods and services, and they saw like hundreds of % increase. How can you comment on that?
Well, I believe there is a certain market for certain people. The average person who owns some stock, not necessarily the average consumer owns stocks, but like, average guy, middle class in New York City will own some stock maybe. And they don't go after those big boys. They go after the essentials right now. So those big boys that you're talking about, they have the consumers and they have the people that really go for the big fish. And maybe you're talking about projection, that is people that has the money to invest right now, and they don't care if the stock goes like maybe in 5 years from now kind of thing, like when you're investing in a startup. 5 years from now, maybe that's the new kid on the block, and then you hit the high pot, but maybe it's not. So, but maybe you have the money to invest in that. But if you're an average guy, an average consumer, we wouldn't have the money just to go and invest in something that is not essential in these days.
All right. Karen, what is your take on that?
Can you say the question again?
Yes, I was saying that now I got you. I was saying that having the essential as a leading is like the silver lining in predicting the consumer behavior in the post-COVID world. We can kind of expect that they would go for the hand sanitizers, the food, the essentials. But we saw a huge growth in the demand for luxury goods and services in some of the most hit markets. So my question was, is this like a phenomenon? Is it like something temporary, even though it still continues if you look at the charts for South Korea, etc.? Or what is your take on that? Where is this post-COVID consumer heading to?
Yes, sorry, I had been so wrapped up in Denny's answer that I forgot the question. But it was, I think I really agree with what Denny's saying, but I think there's another piece to this, which is that I don't think it's a temporary situation. I think my opinion is it was heading in this direction anyway. And I think what COVID-19 did with a lot of things, not just this, but with a lot of things, is it pushed things that were already heading in a certain direction. It accelerated the timeline. So I think all that's happened is that the timeline on that trend got accelerated. I think you've been seeing a trend. For example, I deal a lot with companies in the luxury space. I think luxury real estate, luxury goods. I think what you're seeing is a shift in the definition of luxury. One of the things that we're seeing is that somebody was saying to me the other day, health is the new luxury, right? So where people are spending money is on health. Like if you look in the US, and this may be worldwide, but I know for sure in the US, Pelotons, the Peloton machine, right? The stock shot up crazy. You couldn't even get a Peloton delivered for the last 4 to 5 months because everyone was buying them. Now, these are not cheap exercise machines. So I think the definition of luxury is starting to shift. And right now it's shifting into that health is the new luxury. I have a friend that's a luxury real estate agent in South Lake Tahoe, which is a little kind of bedroom community, a little foresty, mountainy community about 3 hours outside of San Francisco. When COVID first hit, their real estate agents, they were like, we're just on vacation. We're sitting around doing nothing because nobody wants to buy a house. Well, I cannot tell you, I was just there. It's insane. A property goes on the market and it gets sold like that because all of these people are now saying, well, we can work from anywhere. So why should we work in San Francisco when we can go 3 hours, be in the mountains, and work in a house 3 hours in the mountains? Now, of course, what always happens, and this is my favorite saying lately, is Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg famously has said that the symbol of America is not an American eagle, it's a pendulum. So of course, what happens is now everyone's rushing out of New York. It's a great time to buy an apartment in New York, by the way, because everyone's rushing out of New York to Connecticut and Long Island, and people are rushing into South Lake Tahoe and out of the city. But of course, what will happen is there will be either a vaccination or there'll be something will happen, and COVID will be less of an issue at some point. And people will go, you know, I've been in the country for a while, I'm bored, I think I'll go back to the city. And the pendulum will swing. But so I think there is always this swing of the pendulum. But I think the important point, and to Denny's really important point that she made, is that what people consider essential has shifted. They don't consider being able to get on a plane and go to a meeting essential anymore. They consider having hand sanitizer essential. They don't consider having to go be at a meeting essential anymore, but they do consider having really good ring lights so they're well lit on their Zoom meetings to be essential, right? So I think it's these changes of what's essential. But again, I firmly do believe that COVID only pushed us quicker into a direction we were headed in anyway. That's how I see it.
Great light ring you
it's
have,
a
Karen.
$50 ring light from Amazon. Thank you.
To make your point.
All right. So because of the direction where Karen took us with the lights of the rings of light, I have a question for all of you, which actually is very important for a very large industry. And as we've discussed with our great guests on Tuesday, there are three things that really explode currently, animation, generally in the industry. One is animation, and the third one is events. The second one we are not going to comment anyway. Events virtualization platforms. Is it like virtual here to stay, or you expect everything virtual to disappear upon people becoming socially active in person again?
Oh no, I think before COVID, we were in an OR world, an OR world in terms of virtual. So you had live or virtual, and virtual was considered the stepchild of live. So what's happened is now post-COVID, we're living in an and world, right? No doubt that even if we can go back to having 10,000 person in-person meetings, we'll do that, but we will always have a virtual piece. I think virtual has stopped being the stepchild and is becoming fully integrated into the way we do things. I think that's been the biggest change from COVID. You know, and it's interesting because one of the ways I know that is I know that from my own business, you know, because as a branding and marketing strategist, I do all this work with executives on their brand, their personal brand. I can't tell you how many calls I've been getting for, hey, I need you to help my executives figure out how to be on video and have their personal brand come across on video, right? How to have their executive presence on video, how to engage people on video, because that is not going to change. I've had many CEOs tell me that when this is over, they're still not going to go back to the degree of in-person meetings they had before. They're going to keep a better balance. That's what I'm hearing and seeing in my world.
Thank you so much, Karen. Let me see another point of view, if anyone has such.
Yes, I'll keep that rolling because I believe it's important to see what Google, Apple, Yahoo, everybody else is doing out there. They're hiring people just to work remotely. So everything virtual, it saves money to companies as well. And that is the new America. The new America is the permits to save money, workspace, and everything for the employee to be, happy and be with the family and all that stuff that is actually making us think it's pre-COVID and also post-COVID that we thought maybe we stay more at home. Maybe we analyze, maybe we can just work here and do something for our family while we work in ourselves. So I think the whole virtual spectrum is getting even bigger now. Not only for the big companies to get some savings on, the personnel, but also for the family and for the employee to be happy within their home health. So that's a win-win for everybody, the virtual space. And of course, we can't forget the element of social media, and everything goes virtual. Every other social platform like Instagram, Facebook, everybody's doing like the lives, everybody's going after the Insta live, and if you don't have it, then I have it on Facebook. If I don't have it here, maybe Twitter is having it now. Like who knows who's next? I don't know. I know TikTok is banned right now for now within the United States. I don't know what's going to happen with TikTok, but everything is going to go virtual one way or the other. And one important thing that we haven't mentioned is the demographics. Even though, of course, the new generations, like say, for instance, 20 to 35 are really the biggest consumers of this social media, even the people that is 45 plus is getting into that virtual world, is learning how to zoom in into a conference, how to work from home. And even though they're probably 40 something and up, they are all related with the virtual world because they have to. And it's an element that will just keep growing.
Indeed, Denny. Ankush, you're such a gentleman. You never interrupted a lady. Please share your thoughts on my last question. And if you wanted to repeat it, I would be glad to do so.
No worries, Plamen. I think I've got what was being talked about. I have some conflicting thoughts about how this will evolve. On one side, I completely agree with Denny and that meetings and business meetings, I don't think they'll ever be the same again. In terms of communication, Dubai, for example, is a big center for consultants who fly out to Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and so on. Some of them are friends of mine. Some of them are sources that I work with on stories. And I can tell you that they're elated, super happy that they don't have to fly into different countries daily, take the morning flight, come back in the evening, and so on. And there are people who have invested in home setups with camera systems and lighting and everything. If you look at the indicators from the multinational corporations, which are some of them like Google, Apple, have been saying that they'll open their offices in June 2021, you can see that the interaction in the workplace or between workplaces is definitely gonna never be the same. As far as that is concerned, we are going to see a large shift towards virtualization. As Denny mentioned, there's going to be a lot of cost saving, and you can't fake capitalism in that sense. Now, that being said, the events industry does have a lot of stakeholders. Dubai, for example, is a big center for events. You have the Expo next year, which was supposed to be this year.
Chaldex is announced as in-person event, Ankush.
Yes, you can see that, unbelievable, right? And if you look at Expo, if you look at all the other events, there's so many stakeholders to these events, from governments to businesses that cater to these events. Large centers like London, Singapore, New York, there are economies that depend on it. So what we are probably going to see is that the large events will come back in time, but the smaller events probably will not be able to sustain and will slowly move online. It'll be easier for the entrepreneurs and the businesses behind them also to maintain it. The risk there is that the further we go away from it, the more this starts feeling normal. Mm. I'm a journalist. I'm on my feet most of the times, but I'm getting used to staying at home. I like being able to set up meetings on email and do the Zoom call and I'm done. There's no commuting. There's no coming back and transcribing. I'm writing my story as I'm speaking. So, with large events, that'll be the risk eventually. You start to think like, this is normal. There's no Glastonbury. There's no Expo. There's no GITEC. There's no CES. There's no Mobile World.
No, but Ankush, again, you said something about big events, but CES is an example of how large-scale events transform. They've recently announced that there will be, after 1 month after their announcement that it will be all in person, 1 month later they've announced it's all going to be virtual. Right. So 2021 starts with virtual, and they are going to be setting the trend for 2021. Obviously, WEBIT is virtual almost every day these days. We were the first to start this virtual edition, so we do it like 3 to 4 times per week. And of course, we are planning a huge virtual event later on. We have 1 million database aggregated, 300,000 only for the past 3 months. So how is GITEX going to be in person? Please elaborate on that. And is Dubai, and you as someone who lives in Dubai, is Dubai happy about it?
I would risk saying, like, I mean, GITEX as an event is not supposed to be virtual. It doesn't have the same, any large tech event for that matter. I'm supposed to be going to one in Germany in about a month. And, I've been told that the tickets will be booked at the last minute because that's the kind of risk the event is carrying. I genuinely, I fall in the bracket of people who doesn't want these events to go online. I feel like there is still value to person-to-person communication, to meeting brands and stakeholders in person. The brands are able to do a lot more in terms of experiences versus online. The good thing about what is happening right now is that we are always glued to a screen right now when we are at home. If it's not the laptop, it's the TV or it's the phone. The bad news is there are a lot many other things to distract us. When we are at events, we are at events. We are not doing it. Once I'm in front of a screen and I'm attending a webinar, hopefully nobody right now is doing that watching.
Yeah, we compete with Facebook, YouTube.
That distraction.
Yeah. But let's see how many people are with us for this one particularly. And Yuka, what do you think?
I would also add that what proved to work successfully online will stay online. Of course, in the near future, we will see great demand in using virtual models and using virtual formats and using online conference connecting with the audience. But here, what I could also add that there is an immense number of advantages, such as the reduction of organizational costs, reduction of costs, and at the same time, there is a great number of opportunities opened up for customers. Such as if you want to cook a cake, you can just join an online course and you don't need to leave your home for it. And if you want to visit any theater, being in Vienna, in Moscow, you can do this without the necessity to fly thousands of miles. And this is really amazing. But at the same time, there is social aspect, there is emotional aspect. That won't go anywhere, and people will still need to enjoy those offline, in-person conferences. And after the restrictions are lifted, actually, we'll see those offline companies resuming their activities. But at the same time, online conferences will be in more demand than it was before.
All right. So you are in line to believe that the offline events will be back in full power, in full wind, and you expect people to start getting together as soon as something changes?
Actually, I think this will happen gradually, of course, because there is some uncertainty, there are some fears that people are preferring to stay contactless, so stay to social distance, right? And so I think this will happen, but very slowly and very gradually. But
what is the time frame that you can think of getting back to this old, new, great normal when we were hugging each other and being personal and feeling great?
It's a good question because it really depends on the country and the number of new cases varying from this or that country. Because in some countries, actually, people getting together right now, and they acting like there were no any coronavirus pandemics at all. And but other countries are very, very responsible in this regard. And I think that maybe we can give such estimations like 1 year maybe. But of course, I think people will enjoy online formats because even older generations like our parents who have never done online shopping, they're finding it extremely convenient, easy to use, funny, And the same here with online conferences. So I think that it will be extremely popular to use those online formats, but people will miss those feelings and emotions given by in-person communication. But
there'll be many things people will be missing, I'm guessing, but hopefully new ones will be introduced. And Denny, you're in Italy
Yes.
right now.
I am.
And
Believe it or
we
not.
discussed about waves, first
Yes.
wave and now second wave. Can you elaborate on the situation in the country currently?
Yes. So Italy, talking about virtual, I wish everything can go virtual. And then right now, Italy, in regards to the economy, it's recuperating little by little. But just kind of like to close that topic on the virtual thing, it depends of the practicality, because virtual exists before COVID. And we kind of like understood the real concept of virtual reality when COVID hit the humanity. And that's why we're doing this virtually right now. So just kind of like closing on that topic, I jump into the experience of Italy, where I am right here, right now, and I have all my family overseas. And I have to use the virtual world in order to communicate, because it's not, I can't travel, even though for me it's essential. I can, because it's not essential anymore these days. And I can't even get out of the country anyway. So in Italy, it's relearning from the experience. Like we say as an American, that Italy is taking it slow and doing a lot of things for tourism. And just as you know, Italy and France are the two countries in Europe #1 in tourism these days. And they were really bad, like, you know, in terms of like local economies, not only like, for instance, Rome, Milan, Florence, you know, cities like everybody knows, they were hitting like 80% of the tourism force went down. We're talking about, and I do have some numbers to share, according to the National Agency of Tourism in Italy, the foreign tourism in the country will go down in 2020 about 55%. That's about 35 million people that stopped to visit Italy versus 2019. If you kind of like block 35 million people out of Italy, imagine the impact, the economic impact that cities like Rome and Florence, Milan has. But like even worse in a city, a small city, I don't know, like Brescia, or one of like those little ones like Bergamo, the economy, the little economies were really destroyed by 80%. So the economy right now is relying on the virtual aspect. Why is that? So for instance, Sicily, everybody knows Sicily for the food, for the beach and all that stuff. And the government of Sicily is relying on virtual strategies to tell the world out there, hey, here we are. And once COVID is out, we're gonna give you some sort of like payment of your trip, like your airfare and the hotels, please come visit us. So right now, the economy is reaching out to virtual and to internet. It's relying on technology to discover a new way to recover. So that's the only way. The only way for Italy right now to get out and say, hey, this is what we're gonna do once this is over, is virtual. So we do have to rely on a virtual world. You can say Instagram, you can say Facebook, you can say whatever you want, but we're right here, educating people out there about the situation virtually. So this is the same way in each country. I was also, before Italy, I was in New York, and everybody was like, well, I was in New York probably in February, and everybody was like scared of what was happening. And I was talking with my friends, do you got a mask? No, the masks were like $25 a mask when usually it's like $8. And everything I learned by virtual contact with the people out there, that this was the situation. So we rely on virtual in order to move on.
Well, moving on, Karen, what do you think is going to be the biggest change in marketing moving forward, in your opinion?
Well, I think everyone on the panel sort of pointed to it, either obviously or not. And I really think it's this, what I'm telling my clients is it's this shift from what I call shiny object to substance. I think we've lived pre-COVID in this world of shiny object, people you've got to be on Facebook and do Facebook ads. You know, you've got to be doing this, you've got to be doing that. This, and it's this sort of this spinning shininess that really had no grounding in anything, right? It was just a lot of hope and hype. And I think one of the big shifts we're seeing now, and we're going to continue to see in marketing, is really this shift from shiny object to substance. And I think substance for companies, for brands, is going to be a combination of three things. And I think whether this is big brands or small brands, I think this is true for Fortune 500 companies. And I think this is going to be true for small businesses, which is a reasonable amount of what I would call social research, you know, really looking at how people are responding online to certain things, combined with your experience as a company and an organization and being in touch with your clients, combined with a little bit of reasonable assumption based on what you're seeing. And I think we're going to see much more what I like to call sober marketing. You know, I think there was a lot of this shiny object, and I really think we're heading towards much more sober marketing, which I personally have to say, as a branding and marketing strategist, I am very happy to see that change, because I think that change has been needing to happen for quite a long time. So that's what I see coming.
Thank you so much, Karen. Ankush, how is that affecting the society? What do you think is that move from, and is there a move from me to we? I mean, we see all these movements happening, and societies became, I believe, a little bit more sensitive towards sustainable choices. What do you think?
Yeah, I think what the COVID-19 outbreak has done is that it's changed the contract between business and society. I think if you're a business or a brand right now, you really will have to convey in your marketing what your purpose is. Because your customer is going to ask you these hard questions. Why does your company exist? How does it contribute to societal, environmental, and economic progress? It's not enough to just have a brand and build advertising around it. Your message of what you are doing, and I think Karen also touched upon it. What's your standing in the society that you operate in? What kind of message are you sending out? You mentioned how those two large restaurant chains, took small business loans. Now and they were immediately questioned, because the customer is now is no more thinking about himself alone. He's thinking about a larger picture now. He's thinking about climate change. He's thinking about health. He's thinking about public health. He's thinking about the economic upliftment of all of the society, not just himself. There is going to be a radical change in that sense. This changing of the contract, it's going to have huge ramifications for businesses, and they will need to find their message, find their purpose, and then convey it in a manner that the customer is able to perceive it correctly as well. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, and I think marketers of the future have their work cut out in being able to balance the needs of the business, which is profit, and then obviously existing within the society that they operate in. It's going to be quite a challenge for them going forward.
Yuka, what is your take on that? What do you think?
Well, actually, I fully agree with Ankush. And actually, in these new realities, brands are now adapting to those changes, and there are more demands among the customers. And but there is another side of that, because many companies are cutting their marketing budgets, and many of them have already done this. And we also know that there are many examples of those companies who couldn't move their businesses online. They just decided to stop their marketing activities at all. And there is a difficult question with that, because they cannot stay afloat and they cannot stay visible in the media space, while other more brave companies are taking advantage of this situation and experimenting with different new ways of customer experience and so on. And there is very, very interesting research made by analysts by Harvard Business Review, if I'm not mistaken. The analyst found out that during the Great Recession in 1923, most sales were in the companies who didn't stop their marketing activities. And actually nothing has changed since that time. And there is a very working rule that when everything is good, you need to advertise. And when everything is bad, you must do that. And many companies just forget this rule. And they are waiting, they're kind of taking a wait and see approach. And they are waiting until the restrictions are lifted, until the coronavirus will end actually. And however, there is actually one more research that shows that the companies who stop their marketing activities for over 6 months, they will have their brand awareness reduced by almost 40%. And this is actually something crazy, because I think that those companies will have some problems when they decide to resume those activities, because there are more brave companies. They are winning the race right now, and they are winning this competition for the audience. So there's
no vacuum. Vacuum is always filled with new products, new services. So it's going to be a reshuffling. We all know that very well. But because we have to wrap up, and I would love to get you all involved here. It's very important. We see the Black Lives Matters movement. We have political, economical, humanitarian riots and all around the world. And we expect more to come, obviously, if you read the analysis. Where do you think brands should stand in such situation? That's a question I've also asked to the other guests in this studio previously this week. Do you expect brands to take sides and basically to start supporting particular social, health, economical challenges? Or would you expect them to be more neutral and to stick to their product characteristics and making their customers happy using these products and services? What will be your take? Please take it, and whoever wants to start first.
I think the era of being silent has passed us by. I don't think brands get the choice anymore. Like I mentioned earlier, the contract between brands and businesses is going to change. And the customers are going to ask these brands, where do you stand? The option of being neutral or trying to walk the middle line is not going to be there for them. There's also a second factor. Businesses, have workforces, and the workforce comes from the society that they operate in. And eventually, no matter how hard you try, the workforce is going to force you to react in a certain manner. You've seen that within the large tech businesses, Facebook, Google. You've seen walkouts. You've seen them ask their management to not take up defense contracts. These are, we forget that brands are people as well, and these people are going to ask their management to do things that the management knows perhaps is not politically right in the environment they operate in, or right in terms of me giving an opinion whether they should take a stand or not. Well, the consultants and large management coaches who can tell them more, but I don't think they get a choice. They'll probably have to take a stand, and in the end, the winds are blowing in a certain way in most parts of the world, and they will have to flow with it or risk being left behind. And the customer, and this is capitalism, the customer can be brutal.
Thank you so much, Ankush. Adding here more to this, a couple of days ago, the movement, Facebook boycott started also. So it shows how these new social / humanitarian / economic / other movements shape. Obviously, brands take part, but so what is your take on that, Carol?
Well, I completely agree with what Ankush said. The one thing I would add to that is that there's the brand of the organization, but the thing that's become also incredibly important is the brand of the CEO. You know, when you look at the research, 70% of some people surveyed said that the CEO's reputation played an incredibly important role in attracting employees to the company, as well as motivating them to stay. And that's just the employees. Then there's all the statistics about the CEO's reputation. And the CEO used to be able to stay out of commenting on these kind of social movements. And the reality is that day is over. You know, I get calls every week from CEOs going, should our company be commenting on Black Lives Matter? Should our company be commenting on this? And I'm saying, yeah, you have to take a stand, because you're not just taking a stand for your customers, as Ankush rightly said, you're taking a stand for your employees. You know, Wayfair is a big furniture distributor in the US. A lot of people use it because you can get furniture delivered overnight. It's actually a great service, but it ended up that they were selling beds for, I want to make sure I get this right, they were selling beds for the people that were being held at the border, you know, with the whole immigration issue in the US, the kids being held. And the employees just went crazy and said, we don't want you to do that. That is not, in our opinion, ethical. We don't want you to do that. And it was a serious ethical problem for Wayfair. So I think more and more you're going to see this intersection of the CEO brand, the business brand, how consumers are relating to it, and how employees are relating to it. And I just think the days of, well, we don't comment on politics, or we don't comment on social movements, or we don't comment on climate change, I think it's over. I think there's this kind of marriage and integration between them that you can no longer separate. And I think you hurt yourself as a business and as a CEO to not decide what side you're on. Right. And sometimes the side you're on, by the way, is the side that you're on, and it has a negative consumer impact. And sometimes it has a positive one. I mean, Goya in the US, Goya Foods is the most recent example of this. So it's going to be interesting to watch how it unfolds.
Thank you so much, Karen. What a great answer to this question. Thank you so much. With examples, I would like to really hear Yulia to wrap up, and Denny. Yulia?
Actually, as I mentioned previously, companies are taking on more human faces, and they're experimenting with more client-oriented approaches, more humane way of communicating with their customers. And those companies that at their own expenses, providing their customers with free opportunities, free campaigns, for example, free access to streaming services. Actually, once the pandemic ends, and even if they stop doing these free opportunities, they will have their customers loyal, because it will be a great image. It will be a great story for this company, and the customers, they will just remember that this or that company provided discounts for doctors, supported different people, different unbanked population, and so on. And this is really amazing, because a quite interesting example when the air companies provided discounts for doctors, and some customers, they say, well, this air company provided really great discounts for doctors. They supported the doctors. And this is a very good one, very good company, but that company didn't do this. And this is bad company. So I will fly with the first one. This is more client-oriented. And even if this company will stop those marketing activities, they will stay, they will consider to be a client-oriented one, a good one, and this company will have their customers very loyal.
Thank you so much, Julie. And Denny, back to you for a wrap. You're into the investment world rather than into the marketing, but that's why your point of view is very interesting for us. Would you elaborate on what do you expect from brands in order for them to keep their shares high? Do you think that consumers will support, including investing in shares, brands that take part?
Well, everybody has to take a stand, and now that you guys, everything affects the stance. Basically, if Nike, for instance, is doing a campaign with Michael Jordan, and Jordan is taking a stand, obviously, in the Black Lives Matter movement, well, obviously the Nike share will go up, and if you're an investor, then you're going in the good ride. But if not, then like if a company is not necessarily taking any stand whatsoever, or as we mentioned before, Goya, for instance, the president of Goya was like taking the wrong stand in the eyes of the consumer, the average consumer, the Latino consumer of Goya products. Then that's the thing, though. So if this Latino consumer is putting, I'm not gonna buy more rice and beans from Goya, and it goes to the abuela and everybody else in the family, then the Goya stock comes down, and then there's some sort of changes that has to be happen at the corporate level, where the stand is needed. In obviously the Black Lives Matter movement is one of the millions. There's also Latinx. There is also, well, America is a country of diversity. So every rank has to understand the diversity. Being diverse, it means like putting English and Spanish in every label and all that. And those are the companies that are really playing smart, because they know that we are as diverse as we stand on the Constitution now, and that's priority for any brand whatsoever. But taking the stand is important in terms of the practicality of the customer. Some Latino will be offended if Goya says, no, we're not going to support these people, because if I've been buying Goya for my entire life, this is not going to look good in my kitchen anymore, if you know what I mean. Basically, it's like kind of like being kind of like, I don't know, disloyal to your own race, basically, some sort of that. And it's like that in the mentality of the consumer. That is very important, and especially as diverse as we are in America, that is definitely a part to play in the marketing and in the investment world, for sure.
Thank you so much, Denny. I would like to express my gratitude and WEBIT team gratitude to all of you taking part in this fantastic discussion. For me, it was really very interesting to follow your thoughts and to hear your expectations and, of course, shared experiences. Thank you so much for being with us. And I would like to express my gratitude also to fantastic WEBIT community from all around the world for being with us, supporting WEBIT Virtual during this first season of becoming all virtual. As we've discussed, we're looking forward to come back to our in-person events, but in the meantime, until then, we will continue making WEBIT Virtual more and more interesting and hopefully more impactful, supporting our community members wherever they are in the world. With this particular edition, though, I would like to put a full stop on the first season, and we will all go for an August vacation, preparing for our large WEBIT Festival 2020 virtual event in November. And of course, opening the virtual season again back in September. In the meantime, I'm wishing you a great summer, and thank you all for being with us. We will announce the first WEBIT Virtual and the beginning of September, and it will be again an amazing experience, 3 times per week and every single week. Thank you again for joining. Thank you for being with us.
This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual.